The Zarnaxian miscalculation. The vast emptiness of space had long been the playground of the Zarnaxian Empire. For millennia, they had expanded their reach across the galaxy, subjugating lesser species and harvesting resources from countless worlds. Their superiority was unquestioned, their technology unmatched. That is, until they stumbled upon a small blue planet in an unremarkable solar system. High Admiral Zexlor stood on the bridge of the Zarnaxian flagship, his 4 eyes fixed on the holographic display of Earth. His tentacles twitched with anticipation as he studied the primitive world below. Another easy conquest, he thought, mandibles clicking in what passed for a smile among his kind. The Zarnaxian assessment of Earth had been swift and dismissive. They saw a fragmented planet, divided by imaginary lines and petty conflicts. Their scans showed technology that was centuries behind their own. Projectile weapons, combustion engines, and a pitiful attempts at space exploration. It was almost insulting that such a backward species had managed to survive this long. Zexlor's strategy was simple, a show of force to cow the humans into submission, followed by a swift occupation of key strategic locations. He had done this 100 times before on 100 different worlds. Why should this one be any different? The invasion began with a series of electromagnetic pulses designed to disable Earth's primitive electronic infrastructure. Zarnaxian ships descended from the skies, their sleek, crystalline forms glittering in the sunlight as they positioned themselves above major cities. But something was wrong. The EMPs had less effect than anticipated. Certainly, there was chaos and confusion, but it was far from the total blackout the Zarnaxians had expected. Unbeknownst to them, humans had been preparing for such attacks for decades, hardening their critical systems against electromagnetic interference. Zexlor frowned as reports flooded in. Human military forces were mobilizing far more quickly than predicted. Their weapons, while primitive, were proving surprisingly effective against Zarnaxian shield technology. It seemed the humans had been studying the Zarnaxian ships since their arrival, adapting their weapons on the fly to exploit weaknesses. The first real shock came when a squadron of Zarnaxian fighters was shot down over a place called Area 51. The humans had reverse-engineered anti-gravity technology from a crashed Zarnaxian scout ship decades ago, creating hybrid craft that could match the aliens in aerial combat. On the ground, things were even more surprising. Human soldiers displayed a level of adaptability and creativity that baffled the Zarnaxians. They used guerrilla tactics, striking from hidden bunkers and disappearing before retaliation could be mounted. Their hackers launched cyberattacks that somehow breached Zarnaxian firewalls, causing chaos in the invaders' communication networks. But it wasn't just the military that fought back. Civilians took up arms, formed resistance cells, and sabotaged Zarnaxian operations at every turn. Scientists worked around the clock, analyzing alien technology and developing countermeasures. In mere days, humans had made advancements that should have taken years. Zexlor watched in disbelief as his carefully laid plans crumbled. A human missile, enhanced with salvaged Zarnaxian technology, streaked towards his flagship. He barked orders to raise shields, but it was too late. The missile struck, sending shockwaves through the massive ship. As alarms blared and emergency systems kicked in, Zexlor realized his gravest error. He had underestimated not just the humans' technology, but their spirit, their tenacity, their sheer bloody-minded refusal to give up. The Zarnaxian invasion force retreated to the outer reaches of the solar system, licking their wounds and reassessing their strategy. Earth, meanwhile, celebrated its victory, but remained vigilant. They knew this was only the beginning. In the days that followed, Zexlor pored over reports and data, trying to understand how it had all gone so wrong. The humans' ability to rapidly adapt and innovate was unlike anything the Zarnaxians had encountered before. Their fractious nature, which had seemed a weakness, proved to be a strength. Each nation, each culture brought its own unique perspective to the fight, creating a diversity of tactics that the Zarnaxians struggled to counter. Moreover, the invasion had done what centuries of human history had failed to do. It united the planet. Old enemies set aside their differences in the face of a common threat. Resources and knowledge were shared freely. The entire human race worked together with a single purpose: survival. As Zexalor prepared his report for the Zarnaxian High Command, he knew that his career was over. But he also knew that he had stumbled upon something far more valuable than another conquered world. He had discovered a species with the potential to challenge the Zarnaxian Empire's dominance. His report concluded with a recommendation that would shock the High Command: avoid war with the humans at all costs. Seek alliance instead. Their potential is limitless, and it is far better to have them as friends than as enemies. The Zarnaxian Empire had avoided war with humans not out of mercy or kindness, but out of a newfound respect tinged with fear. They had looked into the eyes of humanity and seen a reflection of their own past, a young, ambitious species with the drive to reach the stars. But in humans, that ambition was paired with an adaptability and innovative spirit that the Zarnaxians had lost long ago. As Zexalor finished his report, he gazed out at the blue planet spinning serenely below. For the first time in his long life, he felt something akin to excitement. The galaxy was about to change, and humanity would be at the center of it all. The first contact had been a disaster for the Zarnaxians, but it had revealed a truth that would reshape galactic politics for centuries to come. Humanity was not to be trifled with. They were not merely another species to be conquered, but a force to be reckoned with, potential allies in the vast, cold expanse of space. The age of Zarnaxian dominance was over. The age of humanity had begun. The diplomatic dance. In the aftermath of the failed Zarnaxian invasion, Earth was a planet transformed. The wreckage of alien ships dotted landscapes from the Sahara to Siberia, silent monuments to humanity's unexpected victory. But the real changes were happening in the halls of power, where world leaders grappled with the new reality of humanity's place in the cosmos. Dr. Amelia Chen, Earth's newly appointed ambassador to extraterrestrial affairs, stood before the United Nations General Assembly. Her voice, calm but tinged with urgency, echoed through the chamber. "We stand at a crossroads," she said, her gaze sweeping across the assembled delegates. "The Zarnaxians have withdrawn, but they will return. Not as conquerors this time, but as diplomats. We must be ready." The response from Earth had been swift and unified. The UN Security Council, expanded to include representatives from every nation, had been granted unprecedented authority to coordinate humanity's extraterrestrial policy. Old rivalries were set aside as resources poured into a new global initiative, Project Starbridge. Thousands of kilometers above, the first fruits of this collaboration were taking shape. A massive space station, cobbled together from existing modules and newly launched components, would serve as neutral ground for the upcoming negotiations. It was a statement of intent, a demonstration that humanity could accomplish in months what might have taken years before the invasion. As the station neared completion, the Zarnaxian diplomatic fleet arrived. Their ships, once terrifying harbingers of destruction, now approached with caution. The lead vessel, a sleek craft that shimmered like an opal, carried High Emissary Vexera, Zexalor's replacement, and the Zarnaxian Empire's top negotiator. The first face-to-face meeting between human and Zarnaxian leaders was tense. Dr. Chen, flanked by a diverse team of Earth's best and brightest, faced Vexera across a table specially designed to accommodate both species' physiologies. "We come in peace," Vexera began, her translator converting clicks and whistles into smooth, accentless English, "and with apologies for our misunderstanding." Dr. Chen's response was diplomatic but firm. "We accept your apology, but trust must be earned. We are prepared to discuss terms for peaceful coexistence, but we will not compromise on our sovereignty or our security." What followed was a marathon of negotiations that would have seemed impossible just months before. The humans, leveraging their unexpected victory, pushed for concessions that would have been unthinkable to the Zarnaxians before their defeat. Access to Zarnaxian technology was high on the list of demands. In exchange, humanity offered something the Empire had not encountered in millennia: fresh perspectives and innovative thinking. Earth's diversity, once seen as a weakness by the Zarnaxians, was now recognized as a wellspring of creativity. Cultural exchange programs were established, with human artists, musicians, and chefs invited to Zarnaxian worlds. In return, Zarnaxian scholars shared insights into fields of science humans had only dreamed of. The first human students left for Zarnaxian universities, while Zarnaxian diplomats set up embassies in major Earth cities. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Hardliners on both sides argued against cooperation. Some humans, traumatized by the invasion, called for isolation or even preemptive strikes against Zarnaxian worlds. Zarnaxian conservatives balked at the idea of treating humans as equals, seeing it as a dangerous precedent that could undermine the Empire's authority. Dr. Chen and Vexera worked tirelessly to bridge these divides. They organized joint scientific missions, cultural festivals, and even a galactic sports tournament that captured the imagination of both species. One of the most significant breakthroughs came in the field of medicine. Zarnaxian biotechnology, centuries ahead of Earth's, offered cures for diseases that had long plagued humanity. In return, human medical researchers, with their out-of-the-box thinking, found novel applications for Zarnaxian tech that the aliens had never considered. As months turned into years, the relationship between Earth and the Zarnaxian Empire evolved from wary cooperation to genuine partnership. Trade routes were established, with human goods, everything from art and entertainment to unique Earth minerals, finding eager markets on Zarnaxian worlds. In return, Zarnaxian technology gradually filtered down to improve daily life on Earth, from cleaner energy sources to more efficient transportation systems. But perhaps the most profound change was in the Zarnaxian Empire itself. Exposure to human culture and ideas sparked a renaissance of sorts among the aliens. Long-dormant creative impulses were awakened, leading to a flowering of Zarnaxian art, literature, and philosophy. The rigid hierarchies that had defined Zarnaxian society for millennia began to loosen, inspired by human concepts of individual liberty and democratic governance. 5 years after the failed invasion, Dr. Chen and Vexera stood together on the observation deck of the now completed Starbridge station. Below them, Earth shone like a blue jewel, while in the distance, the first joint human-Zarnaxian colony ship prepared for its maiden voyage. "Did you ever imagine we'd come this far?" Dr. Chen asked, a note of wonder in her voice. Vexera's mandibles clicked in amusement. "Never. But I've learned not to underestimate humans. You have a saying, don't you? The sky's the limit." Dr. Chen laughed. "Something like that. Though I think we've proven that even the sky isn't the limit anymore." As they watched the colony ship ignite its engines, both human and Zarnaxian felt a sense of anticipation. The diplomatic dance had been intricate and often difficult, but it had laid the foundation for something greater than either species could have achieved alone. The galaxy was vast and largely unknown, but with the combined strengths of human ingenuity and Zarnaxian technology, it was no longer an unconquerable frontier. It was a canvas, waiting to be painted with the colors of cooperation and mutual understanding. As the colony ship vanished into the depths of space, carrying the hopes and dreams of two species once locked in conflict, both Dr. Chen and Vexera knew that this was just the beginning. The true test of their partnership lay in the stars, waiting to be discovered: the galactic stage. A decade had passed since Earth's fateful first contact with the Zarnaxian Empire, and humanity's ascension to the galactic stage was nothing short of miraculous. The joint human-Zarnaxian colony ship that Dr. Chen and Vexera had watched depart from the Starbridge station had been just the beginning. Now, human settlements dotted dozens of worlds across the galaxy, each a testament to humanity's adaptability and drive to explore. On the lush world of Novaterra, the first and most successful of these colonies, Governor Kai Nakamura stood on the balcony of the Capitol building, watching the twin suns set over a landscape that was both alien and increasingly familiar. The city below was a marvel of human ingenuity and Zarnaxian technology. Sleek buildings that seemed to defy gravity, streets lined with bioluminescent plants that lit up as darkness fell, and in the distance, the massive form of a space elevator reaching up into the purple sky. Kai's comm unit chimed, displaying a message from Earth. The UN Security Council was calling an emergency session, and as the governor of humanity's most prominent extraterrestrial colony, his presence was required. With a sigh, Kai made his way to the hologram chamber, wondering what new challenge awaited. The chamber hummed to life, and suddenly Kai found himself virtually standing in the UN's Grand Meeting Hall in New York. Familiar faces materialized around him. Dr. Chen, now Secretary General of the UN, various world leaders, and even a few non-human representatives, including Vexara, who now served as the Zarnaxian Empire's ambassador to Earth. Dr. Chen's expression was grave as she addressed the assembly. "Thank you all for convening on such short notice. We've received troubling news from our deep space monitoring stations. A previously unknown species has entered the galaxy, and their intentions appear to be hostile." Holographic displays flickered to life, showing grainy images of sleek, predatory-looking ships. "We're calling them the Swarm," Dr. Chen continued. "They've already overwhelmed several outlying Zarnaxian colonies. Their technology is unlike anything we've seen before, and they show no interest in communication or negotiation." The room erupted in a cacophony of voices, questions and concerns flying from all directions. Kai noticed Vexira's usually composed demeanor crack slightly, her mandibles clicking rapidly in what he had learned was a sign of distress. As the initial shock subsided, the assembly began to formulate a response. It was clear that this threat was beyond anything humanity or the Zarnaxians had faced before. But in adversity, the strength of their alliance shone through. Humanity's greatest weapon had always been its diversity of thought and ability to innovate under pressure. Now, with access to advanced Zarnaxian technology and a decade of cross-species collaboration, that innovative spirit was supercharged. Over the next few months, a flurry of activity swept across human and Zarnaxian worlds alike. On Earth, factories that had once produced cars and consumer electronics were retooled to churn out components for a new generation of hybrid warships. Zarnaxian shipyards worked around the clock, incorporating human-designed improvements to their already formidable vessels. But the real game-changer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a human scientist working on Novaterra, had been studying the planet's unique magnetic fields. Her research, combined with Zarnaxian quantum mechanics, led to a breakthrough in sensor technology that could detect the Swarm's ships even when cloaked. As the combined human-Zarnaxian fleet assembled, it became clear that this crisis had catalyzed a new level of integration between the two species. Human tactical officers served alongside Zarnaxian weapons specialists. Zarnaxian pilots marveled at the intuitive controls designed by human engineers. The first confrontation with the Swarm was a grueling day-long battle in a remote star system. The enemy's biological ships, more organism than machine, proved incredibly resilient. But the combination of Zarnaxian firepower and human unpredictability gradually turned the tide. In the heat of the battle, a young human lieutenant named Maria Cortez made a discovery that would change everything. Analyzing real-time data from Dr. Tanaka's sensors, she noticed a pattern in the Swarm's movements. They weren't just attacking randomly. They were protecting something. With this insight, the Allied fleet was able to target the Swarm's command structure, disrupting their coordination. The battle ended in victory, but it was clear that this was just the opening salvo in a longer conflict. As news of the victory spread, a wave of unity washed over the galaxy. Other species, who had been watching the humans, and Zarnaxians with a mixture of curiosity and wariness, now reached out with offers of alliance. The Galactic Concordat, once a dream of idealistic diplomats, was becoming a reality out of necessity. Back on Novaterra, Kai found himself busier than ever. The colony had become a key strategic location, its resources and manufacturing capabilities crucial to the war effort. But more than that, it had become a symbol of what was possible when different species worked together. In the colony's central plaza, a new monument was unveiled. It depicted a human hand and a Zarnaxian appendage, reaching out to each other across the void of space. At its base, a plaque bore an inscription in multiple languages. In diversity, we find strength. In understanding, we find peace. In cooperation, we find hope. As Kai stood before the monument, he reflected on how far they had come. A decade ago, humans were barely aware of their place in the galaxy. Now they stood as equals with ancient spacefaring civilizations, helping to forge a united front against an existential threat. The road ahead would be challenging. The swarm was still out there, probing for weaknesses, and there were undoubtedly more surprises waiting in the vast expanse of the galaxy. But Kai felt a sense of optimism that would have seemed naive just a few years earlier. Humanity had not just adapted to its place on the galactic stage, it had become an integral part of the performance. And as the twin suns of Novaterra set on another day, Kai knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Humans, Zarnaxians, and whoever else might join their cause. The age of isolation was over. The age of galactic cooperation had begun, and at its heart was the indomitable spirit of humanity, reaching for the stars not with fear or aggression, but with hope and an open hand. The Proxima Crisis. As the war against the swarm raged on, a new crisis emerged that would test the limits of galactic cooperation and showcase humanity's unique problem-solving abilities. The Proxima system, a strategic hub connecting several major trade routes, became the epicenter of a conflict that threatened to tear apart the fragile alliances forged in the face of the swarm threat. The system's central planet, Proxima Prime, was home to a race of silicon-based lifeforms known as the crystallines. For millennia, they had remained neutral in galactic affairs, focused on their own spiritual and technological development. But now, as the war pushed more and more refugees into their system, tensions were rising. Admiral Zara Okoi, a decorated human veteran of the Swarm War, was dispatched to Proxima Prime as part of a diplomatic mission. Her task was to negotiate safe passage for Allied fleets through the system, a crucial shortcut that could turn the tide against the swarm. But upon arrival, Zara found a powder keg ready to explode. The crystallines were divided, with one faction welcoming the galactic community and another vehemently opposed to outside interference. To complicate matters further, opportunistic pirate groups were taking advantage of the chaos, raiding refugee ships and disrupting supply lines. As negotiations stalled and violence flared, it became clear that traditional diplomacy wasn't going to be enough. That's when Zara had an idea that would have seemed crazy just a few years ago. Drawing on her knowledge of Earth history, Zara proposed a radical solution: a galactic peace conference, modeled after the historic peace conferences that had resolved conflicts on Earth. But this would be on a scale never before attempted, bringing together representatives from every major species in the galaxy. The logistics were mind-boggling. How do you accommodate beings that breathe methane alongside those that require intense heat or extreme cold? How do you translate concepts across radically different modes of thought and communication? This is where humanity's greatest strength came to the fore. Teams of human anthropologists, linguists, and cultural experts worked tirelessly alongside their alien counterparts to bridge gaps in understanding. Earth's long history of cultural diversity and conflict resolution provided a wealth of strategies to draw upon. The conference, held in a massive space station hastily constructed in the neutral space of the Proxima system, was a spectacle unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Holographic translators hummed, environmental bubbles shimmered, and beings of all shapes and sizes gathered to find a way forward. For weeks, debates raged and alliances shifted. But slowly, progress was made. Zara's team introduced novel concepts like cultural exchange zones and rotating governance that allowed for cooperation while respecting the autonomy of individual species. The breakthrough came when Zara suggested a bold plan, transforming the Proxima system into a galactic hub not just for trade, but for cultural and scientific exchange. The crystallines, who had long seen themselves as isolated guardians of knowledge, were intrigued by the possibility of becoming central players in galactic affairs. As the conference neared its conclusion, a swarm attack on a nearby system threatened to unravel everything. But instead of panic, the assembled representatives rallied together. Species that had been at each other's throats just days before now coordinated a joint defense, showcasing the power of their newfound unity. The Proxima Accords, as they came to be known, were signed amidst cheers and celebrations from a dozen different species. It wasn't just a diplomatic triumph, it was a testament to the power of human ingenuity and the strength that comes from diversity. As news of the Accords spread, it had a ripple effect across the galaxy. Other contested systems looked to the Proxima model as a way to resolve their own conflicts. The unified front presented by the galactic community began to turn the tide against the swarm, pushing them back on multiple fronts. Admiral Okoye, hailed as the architect of this new era of cooperation, reflected on how far they'd come. Humanity, once seen as upstart newcomers on the galactic stage, had become the glue holding together a diverse coalition of species. Their adaptability, creativity, and willingness to learn from others had proven to be their greatest assets. As she gazed out at the shimmering crystalline structures of Proxima Prime, now adorned with the flags and symbols of a dozen different species, Zara felt a sense of hope. The galaxy was still a dangerous place, full of unknown threats and challenges, but for the first time, she believed they had a chance to face those challenges together. Part 5. A New Era of Cooperation. 20 years after the failed Zarnaxian invasion of Earth, the galaxy was a very different place. The swarm had been pushed back to the fringes of known space. The Proxima Accords had ushered in an unprecedented era of interspecies cooperation, and humanity had become a respected and integral part of the galactic community. On the newly established galactic capital of Harmony, a massive space station at the heart of the Proxima system, representatives from hundreds of species gathered for the inaugural session of the Galactic Cooperative. This new governing body, born from the crucible of conflict and the triumph of diplomacy, represented the culmination of years of effort to create a truly united galactic civilization. Dr. Amelia Chen, now in her 70s but still sharp as ever, took the stage as the first human chairperson of the Galactic Cooperative. As she gazed out at the assembled delegates, she couldn't help but marvel at the journey that had brought them all to this point. Friends, colleagues, fellow sentients, she began, her voice carrying across the grand chamber. We stand here today not as conquerors or subjugated peoples, but as equals, united not by fear or necessity, but by choice and the recognition of our shared destiny among the stars. As Dr. Chen spoke, holographic displays showed scenes from across the galaxy. Human scientists working alongside Zarnaxian engineers to develop new forms of faster-than-light travel. Crystalline healers using their unique abilities to cure diseases on distant human colonies. Joint task forces of a dozen different species patrolling the borders of known space, ever vigilant against the return of the swarm or the emergence of new threats. But perhaps most striking were the images of everyday life in this new integrated galaxy. On countless worlds, humans lived and worked alongside beings they once would have considered alien beyond comprehension. Children of different species played together in zero-gravity parks, while universities buzzed with the exchange of ideas across cultures and disciplines. We have faced trials that would have broken lesser civilizations. Dr. Chen continued. We have overcome prejudices that once seemed insurmountable, and in doing so, we have discovered a fundamental truth, that the very differences which once divided us are, in fact, our greatest strength. As she spoke, Dr. Chen reflected on the unique role humanity had played in this transformation. Their adaptability, their drive to explore and understand, their ability to think outside the box. These quintessentially human traits had proven to be exactly what the galaxy needed in its darkest hour. Humans now served as mediators in conflicts between species far older than their own civilization. Their art and culture, once dismissed as primitive by some alien races, now inspired Renaissance movements across the galaxy, and their insatiable curiosity drove scientific advancements at a pace that astonished even the most advanced civilizations. But our work is far from over, Dr. Chen cautioned. The galaxy is vast, and we have only begun to scratch the surface of its mysteries. New challenges will arise, new threats will emerge. But I stand here today confident in the knowledge that whatever the future holds, we will face it together. As Dr. Chen concluded her speech, the chamber erupted in a cacophony of cheers, whistles, and other alien vocalizations of approval. The Galactic Cooperative was more than just a governing body. It was a symbol of what could be achieved when diverse species came together in a spirit of mutual respect and cooperation. In the years that followed, this new galactic civilization would face its share of challenges. The remnants of the swarm still lurked in the darkness between the stars. Ancient rivalries occasionally flared up, threatening the hard-won peace, and the ongoing exploration of the galaxy constantly brought new wonders and new dangers. But through it all, the lessons learned from humanity's first steps onto the galactic stage continued to guide them. The spirit of innovation, the willingness to learn from others, the ability to find common ground amidst vast differences, these became the cornerstones of a thriving, diverse galactic culture. And at the heart of it all was the indomitable human spirit, reaching out across the cosmos not to conquer, but to connect, to explore, to understand, and to build a future among the stars that was greater than any single species could have imagined. As the twin suns of Proxima set on this new era, casting the galactic capital in a warm, multi-hued glow, the promise of that future shone brighter than any star. The age of isolation was long past. The age of conflict had been overcome. Now, at last, the true age of discovery could begin, with humanity and its alien allies united in the greatest adventure of all.